if you're a fixed mindset person and you've been raised thinking, oh, you're smart and therefore you're going to succeed, you have a setback and it's crippling. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to fix it. You dwell on it. You could dwell on it for months. Forget about hours or days. You could dwell on it for months. It could affect everything you do after that. Where if you're somebody who has learned to see a setback as a challenge and enjoy that challenge and work hard at it and go, hey, okay, so this didn't go right. Let's look at the big picture. How can we fix this? Or what can I do differently? Or what kind of path can I change so that it's better this way? What's the benefit that came out of this? Then you're going to be able to step away from that feeling of devastation and destruction and I'm never going to succeed, and into that excitement of, oh my God, this is so cool. Look at this new path.
Hello and welcome to episode 248 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts, along with strategies for success. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review or a rating. That would mean a lot to me and help others find the show. Tell a friend about the podcast and help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Michelle Niemeyer teaches people how to master the art of bending time, making the magic happen in their lives. Michelle's journey to burnout and back during a 30-year legal career led to a powerful discovery. When we connect the dots between who we are and how we spend our time, the impact of our time multiplies. The result is greater health, happiness, and productivity. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Michelle. Michelle, it's so good to have you on today.
Thank you, David. It's really nice to meet you here online in the ether world.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into the work you do, especially with what you call bending time. But tell us a little bit about yourself and the journey to the work you're doing now.
Well, that's a long story. So the short story is that, like way too many people in today's world, I found myself in a career that burned me out. And after that, after I thought it was over, frankly, after I thought I was really back on track, I liked my job again, I was productive, I was doing great, I found out I had an autoimmune disease, which for a lot of people who have autoimmune diseases, we're told by the medical world that that starts with a genetic potential and then is triggered by something. And it could be triggered by something environmental. It could be triggered, sometimes they know, most of the time they don't. There's some potential that it could be related to stress, or it could be related to your diet, or it could be related to your microbiome. A lot of different things. So I found myself in that place where all of a sudden I was looking at having this chronic condition that when I went online and looked it up, it said things like 10-year lifespan. It's 10 years ago, by the way. 10-year lifespan, liver transplant, like scary, scary stuff. And I was like, what do I do? And so I enrolled, after I did a ton of research, I started being bombarded by ads, as you will,
Yeah.
for a nutritional health coaching school. And this school had a lot of people on their staff or as sort of adjunct professors who taught various things, who were the same doctors whose names I was seeing all over the place related to functional and integrative medicine tied to autoimmunity. So I took this course. It was 42 weeks. I spent about 10 hours a week learning how to be an integrative nutrition health coach, and with the pure idea that I was learning for my own purposes. But where that went was I realized that I now knew a lot. I had really learned how to change my life in ways that were monumental. Long-term, over time, I reversed damage from this autoimmune disease. I've kept my blood levels in the, well in the normal range, where the goal of the medical if you read about this disease, the medical goal is to get you near or in the normal range. And I attribute that to a lot of the things I learned in this course, as well as taking a drug that helps, thank God. But that led me to realizing, okay, I don't know for sure what triggered this. Nobody knows what triggers this. But if it is stress, if it is something related to the occupational and lifestyle and, pressures that I was under and what ultimately turned into professional burnout for a while, who was I at the time when I thought I needed help for that? And I realized that I had this moment many years ago before, around when the burnout was pretty bad, but it wasn't at its worst yet. I thought I needed help with time management. The first sort of personal development or, education outside of true legal education course I paid for was a course on time management. And I did that because I was blind to the concept of burnout. I had no idea that was what was wrong. What I was seeing was I was scattered. I felt like I wasn't getting anything done. I was distractible. I almost felt like I had adult ADHD. They crossed my mind to go get tested for that because I was like, every time I started working on something, the notification would pop up and I'd look at my email and then I'd get sucked into the vortex of whatever that was. And the next thing I knew, the project that was on my desk that morning was still there that afternoon. And so I went for this time management course. That taught me some of the things that my program teaches. And those things are important and they're helpful. But it was just the beginning. It was the tip of the iceberg. And so when I decided to do something to try to help other people who were like me, hopefully for those people before they end up with an autoimmune disease or before they get so burned out that they want to walk away from their profession and they're trying to convince their friends' kids never to do it, that those people will learn the things they need to bulletproof themselves from burnout. That's my goal with this, is to really help bulletproof people from burnout and to give them the skills so that they have the fuel that lights them up every day and they can manage their time well, because it all ties together.
Awesome. We have a lot of great stuff to talk about, Michelle. But of course, on the Quiet and Strong podcast, I want to know a little bit more about, you're a fellow introvert. So
Yeah,
when did you figure that out and did you have to embrace it?
I think I always knew it, to be honest. As a young child, I was the kid who was more comfortable with the adults in the room and kind of sitting back and observing and listening and once in a while participating versus being part of a group of my peers. I I really struggled with socialization as a young kid, but not because I wasn't social. I had friends, but it was I had close friends who were the little group close friends and I wasn't comfortable in the big groups. That was always a thing for me. Then we moved twice, and the moving twice forced me to have to be more, I guess, socially out there because you can't just be the quiet and shy kid. I actually was labeled on the first move. I moved from Connecticut to Minnesota. And I was labeled, quote, that bitch from Connecticut, close quote,
Oh no.
because I was shy and I didn't talk much. And people saw me as a bitch because I wasn't talkative. I wasn't gregarious and friendly. And there's this like Minnesota friendly thing. You kind of have to get to know people from there before you know that Minnesota
Right.
friendly thing. But it really exists. I think they actually have a marketing slogan called Minnesota Nice. It's real.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that. And that was, so I learned, I had to learn that skill, so to speak, to fit in there. So I mask well. I mask my introversion, but I definitely have always been that way. And I find now, I mean, the part about what drains you and what fuels you, reading that book Quiet was eye-opening for me because I hadn't really seen it that way before I read that book. but it's very true for me. I can be extremely social, but it's like a chore for me. It's not like oh, I love this. This is my element. My element is walking on the beach alone on Cape Cod
Yeah.
and like,
So, that's why we do this show because there's so many misunderstandings about introversion. We're deep thinkers. Sometimes, like in my case, I did also feel shy because I didn't understand. Hey, you know what? You're gonna think before you speak most of the time. You're not gonna speak as much as your extroverted friends because you're deep in thought. What's the strength that you have because you're an introvert?
well, I would say that's a big part of it. The other part of it is I've learned to embrace that need to take a step. One thing that I always, when I was younger, I felt like it was a weakness. And in certain arenas it can be. I mean, it's when I would be bullied and I was not the master of the quick comeback. I couldn't do that. That wasn't like my brain didn't work that way. So it was like I'd be emotionally reactive and that's what they wanted, but I couldn't come back at them, which was what would have succeeded in fighting them off. So that was a
Right.
problem for me for a long time when I was a little kid. As a litigation attorney, one would think that that skill is necessary, right? And it kind of is, but thorough preparation is what you need to avoid the problems that come from that. And the people who don't thoroughly prepare, who rely on that quick comeback skill, are the ones who get their legs cut out from under them when those words that came out of their mouth can't be supported.
Yeah, yeah. Preparation is a superpower of ours. We're really good at it. And sometimes we're not good at thinking on our feet. Not all the time. It just depends, but
Yeah.
preparation is definitely something that we can really excel at.
So that preparation thing for me was a big deal. I mean, I was an exceedingly good lawyer, and part of it was that I did take real care in being prepared and knowing what I needed to know. And, when I stood before a panel of three appellate judges, I had all the knowledge that I needed, and I had taken that time to focus. And I do think it's an incredible strength.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I learned that too, that if I prepare, I will be fine. So, I'm doing this podcast. Years ago, I would have been so nervous to do this kind of thing, but I'm not. I'm confident. I did the work. I prepared. Same with public speaking. I enjoy it. It doesn't make me nervous because I learned that I need to prepare in my way that works for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and public speaking, one of the things that I've realized with it that helps, and I think this is how, as an introvert, you can handle public speaking well, is that you see the audience as an entity of one, not as 1,000 people, 5,000 people, right? You, yes, you connect to individuals, and that makes you more effective when you can look and connect to an individual and then look at another one. And, but if you don't see it as, oh my God, there's 20,000 people all looking at me at the same time, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? That's different. You and I are talking to each other right now in a conversation that doesn't feel like how many thousands of people who are going to listen to this down the road. It's not like those people are all listening and participating right now. It's not all that noise. And that makes a difference. And that's all how you process it. It's what's in your head and what you perceive.
Yeah, that's a good point because we excel at one-on-one.
Hmm.
And we bust myths on this show, and a myth is that we don't like people. We absolutely do. We just
Oh
need
yeah.
some time alone. We need some balance between alone time and collaboration and just spending time with family and friends. But we absolutely like people, but we just need to find whatever that balance is.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us, what is bending time?
Okay, so this is the meat of it. This is really good stuff. Bending time comes from the concept that although we all have the same number of minutes in an hour, hours in a day, days in a week, some of us can get a lot more done than others. Some of us are much happier and more fulfilled in our lives than others. So here's how I've started looking at time, and this is where bending time comes in. Let's imagine that that ruler, that linear measurement that we traditionally call time, let's look at that like it's a line on a piece of paper, right? But then let's lay on that linear thing a three-dimensional container that's made of something elastic, like a balloon. Imagine it's like a big clear balloon. And in that line, now you have the ability to fill that in a way. It could be different colors, it could be different shapes, it could have scent, it could move, it could stretch, it could reach out toward other things, and it can get bigger depending on how you fill it and what you fill it with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that's spending time, sort of. So here's how we do it. We do it, first of all, by maximizing our capacity to be focused on what we're doing while we're doing it. If I'm, for instance, I'm writing a book right now. If I'm working on writing my book and I'm sitting and I'm really focused just on writing the book, I've turned off the notifications on my computer. My phone is on silent. I am just pouring words onto a page as I'm thinking about it. I'm working from an outline. Maybe once in a while I'm popping back and forth to research some things, but basically I'm focused on the writing. I'm going to get a hell of a lot more done than if I'm writing the book while my email's popping up in my face, while my phone is ringing, while my dog is barking at me, while I feel physically uncomfortable because I'm out of shape and my back hurts and my neck hurts and I've got a headache because I didn't eat breakfast this morning, right? Think about the difference in the productivity you'd get in that second scenario versus I'm physically in shape, I'm mentally focused, and I'm on task.
Yeah. And it is crazy. Like people try to say, "Oh, I'm so good at multitasking," and it's like, no, you're really not. What
No,
you're saying, Michelle, is like, yeah, you need to focus. Especially, I think introverts, we need to focus to get things done, and we need to put that into our time. Is like, I need some focus time to get this project done. I'm not, to write a
absolutely.
book is no easy task. To write a book, you need to have that focus time,
And even let's even say, let's take it out of the room of like something like writing a book, which is a really great introvert project, right? We love that
Yep.
stuff. But let's say it's you're in sales and you work in a store in a mall, and your job is to get people to buy things in your store. And instead you're standing there and you see customers and you're going to talk to those customers, but then your phone buzzes and you answer a text and that customer walks away, right? Like even things like that. Or you're speaking, you're giving a presentation, you've got a team at work and you're giving a presentation to your team, and you take a phone call during that presentation. What does that do to your connection with the people that you're presenting to? How does that affect? Are you able to look at their faces and see their body language and read the room? If you're also, your half your brain is on your phone. So, this is a lot of this is really about, to some degree, mindfulness, but not in the sense of meditation, although meditation can help you get that focus. It's in a sense of being here now with the project, with the activity that you're engaging in, and with the people that you're with, and making sure that you're really 100%. They say that, what is it? I've read different numbers. It's a very high percentage of communication. I've read as much as 90% of our communication with someone is actually nonverbal. So think about that. If you're not paying attention to that person, if you're looking at your phone, if your mind is elsewhere because you're multitasking and you're just listening to them, you're only getting 10% of what that person is conveying to you.
Yeah, I love that. And mindfulness is a key because you should be present with whatever you're doing. I like that you made the distinction because a lot of times people think, oh, it's meditation. No, meditation can be very helpful, but the mindfulness is really being present with what you're
Right.
doing, like
Where meditation is like exercising a muscle in the gym.
yeah, yeah. So where do people start with this? Like somebody's needs to learn how to spend time, they may be feeling burned out. Where do they start?
Yeah, well, I have a program I teach on this, and where I start them is with clarity, which sounds counterintuitive. What's that have to do with getting more done, right? But I start them with clarity, and not clarity on what they're doing, clarity on who they are and what lights them up. So we do a guided meditation about coming, it basically helps bring up memories. For a lot of people, it's childhood memories. It isn't always, of things that really made you feel, for instance, proud or excited, or you have a really high level of anticipation about something, or you feel like you're just overwhelmed with connection with the people around you and feeling loved and feeling, just incredible. What gave you that feeling? And you really get into it. Who was with you at the time? Was it about the people, or was it about the accomplishment, for instance? Was it about, the recognition that you got? Was it about just being connected in a way that physically felt good to you? Or you really like appreciate physical beauty, and you saw an incredible view or something amazing that was visual? Or was it auditory? Was it music? Was it the sound of the words? For different people, everybody has their different things that just really light them up. And so part of what we try to do with the art of bending time is bulletproof people from getting burned out. How do you bulletproof yourself from getting burned out? You get the things that light you up in all of your life as often as you can. It's not going to happen all the time. It's not going to be 100% of what you do in your job. But if you can find a way to make your job, and this is something that's in your power, whether you work on a factory line, or you are the president of a company, or you own your own business. It's something that it has to do with your own perceptions, your own inputs, your own, to some degree it's about what the tasks are, but to some degree it's what you bring to the tasks and how you see them. And then you can make those sparks happen. When you make the sparks happen, they fuel you. So that's the first step. Second step is getting healthy. Like I mentioned, if you're in top physical and mental health, you're going to be focused, you're going to be on your game, and you're going to get more done. Third step is learning about those individual things that you have. I call them internal time sucks, which are often self-soothing mechanisms, things you do to avoid doing something that's hard, or doing something that you don't really feel like, or you're uncomfortable about, or you're afraid of. A lot of times it comes from fear. Why aren't you making that phone call? It's not hard to pick up the phone, but are you afraid of what's going to happen when you make that phone call? So that is what I call an internal time suck. We work on ways to deal with that. Then you get into practices that help you solidify what you just figured out, okay? One of them is dealing with what I call external time sucks. This is just another way to prevent distraction, basically. That could be things in your environment. It could be clutter. It could be noise. It could be, I had an office once that everybody walked past it to go to the kitchen, and they all tried to say hi to me. And it stopped me from getting work done. I ended up moving my computer to the credenza behind my desk so that my back was to them and they could see I was working. It wasn't more obvious, and it couldn't have been. And it worked. Nobody thought I was being antisocial. Nobody thought I was hiding in my office behind closed doors, but they stopped bothering me if I was working on my computer.
Yeah, having being by a high traffic area like that for an introvert can be definitely overwhelming.
Yeah, or for an extrovert, because then they're
Yeah.
like, "Hey,"
Yeah, right, right,
So
right.
either way, it can distract you and it can take you from task. So, and then the other things that you want to look at are mindset issues. Some people, and I was one of these for years, they see a setback as devastating. right? If you're a fixed mindset person and you've been raised thinking, oh, you're smart and therefore you're going to succeed, you have a setback and it's crippling. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to fix it. You dwell on it. You could dwell on it for months. Forget about hours or days. You could dwell on it for months. It could affect everything you do after that. Where if you're somebody who has learned to see a setback as a challenge and enjoy that challenge and work hard at it and go, hey, okay, so this didn't go right. Let's look at the big picture. How can we fix this? Or what can I do differently? Or what kind of path can I change so that it's better this way? What's the benefit that came out of this? Then you're going to be able to step away from that feeling of devastation and destruction and I'm never going to succeed, and into that excitement of, oh my God, this is so cool. Look at this new path, right? And the other thing is habits, creating good habits that are strong habits that reinforce the things that you need to be able to protect your time. And, ninja level stuff. And this is really after you've done all those other things I just mentioned, is I get people analyzing their goals. We have three, what I call big hairy goals, the three giant goals: personal, business, think 3 to 5 to 10 year goals. And we look at where we are on those now. What do we have? And then what do we need? Maybe you have to go back to school. Maybe you need to buy something. Maybe you need to raise capital, whatever that is. And then we look at the opportunities that'll come from reaching that goal and the risks of pursuing it. Will it take time away from some other thing that matters to you? Are you risking your reputation? Whatever that might be. And we look at all of it together. And then I ask people 1 to 10, how much do you want it? And the reason I do that is, sometimes going through that, they realize it's not really aligned with who they are anymore. And they've been spending a lot of their time and money and effort and taking weekends away from their family and whatever that might be on a goal that isn't theirs anymore. And if they focus on the goals that matter, guess what? They just freed up a huge amount of time and potentially a huge amount of money. And they maybe, negative impact on their relationships by changing, by shifting to goals that are aligned with who they are.
Yeah, and that's so key. And it comes back to what you started with. We got to get clarity. What lights us
Yes.
up? And and it's really I learned this that you have to prioritize because you can't do everything. I've tried. I'm sure you've tried
No,
too.
nobody
You
can.
can't.
Nobody
You have to
can.
figure out what's the most important things to me and how am I going to get there? And that's really how you get the things done that are important to you. And
Yes.
we're always going to have some things that we don't like to do that we just have to. But if we could move in that direction of spending more of our time in those things that light us up, I love that phrase, what lights you up. So that's a really good thing to consider regularly.
Well, thank you. And the other piece of it that, you kind of alluded to, and I didn't mention yet, is the concept of a team. We don't do everything. We can't do everything, and we certainly can't do everything all by ourselves. We have team in all kinds of areas of our life. We have probably family, we have friends, we have neighbors, we have coworkers, we have, and then we have the next level of who do you know? Like, who does the person that I know? And so one of the things that I'm really big on, I'm not a fan of work-life balance. I feel like when we put our work into one box and our quote unquote life into another box, right? How is work not part of your life? Of course, it's part of your life. Your career is something you spend at least a third of your time on. And yet we treat it like it's bad. It should be separate. It should be boxed away from the rest of your life, which is supposed to be just the good part. And that doesn't make sense. We should have joy and happiness and good stuff throughout our day. So when we make those boxes, we don't just categorize work in a way that makes work seem like it sucks, excuse my French, but we also are limiting ourselves. We have some places in this world, France, where there's a law that your employer can't text you after working hours or call you. Okay, well, that makes sense if they are asking you to actually respond to that, right? I get that. I don't think it's right for someone to reach out at midnight and say, excuse me, unless they're a firefighter or a paramedic or something, they shouldn't be reaching out to you at midnight and saying, I need to do this now, right? However, should it be wrong that they had a thought cross their mind? They just need to get that out of their head. They send something to someone who has no expectation of responding until work hours. In my opinion, that shouldn't be against the law. That should be, okay, you sent it, but there shouldn't be any expectation that the person on the other end of that communication has to even see it or respond to it
Yeah, absolutely.
immediately.
Yeah.
So, but the concept has been turned into something where it makes some people, especially management level people, uncomfortable about asking people at work about their personal lives, asking them about what they love and what they care about, the hobbies they're into, having a real friendship and relationship. Because when we share our whole selves, we develop relationships with people. And when we draw that line and create that barrier, we make it harder to have that true relationship. We don't get to know them on a human level. Well, what does that mean? Maybe you don't find out that Sam in the marketing department is a brilliant artist and would love to use his art in some of the things that he's creating. But because of the way you do things in your department, he doesn't get to, right? If you knew that, because you actually felt comfortable asking Sam about his hobbies and his life, and you found out he's got a whole other thing going on where he does art, you could support that thing that lights him up and gives him joy, and you could bring it into his workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you're saying because we are a person. We're not
Yes.
we're a whole person and we're always who we are. The other thing about work-life balance that I think is not doesn't work is sometimes you need to put a lot of effort in a different place. Sometimes you may be spending more time in your personal life, or you may have some busy periods at work, and you just have to figure all that out. And again, it goes back to what's my priorities and how am I spending my time, but it's not going to be a perfect balance.
Right. And the other piece that I was going to get to about building team is, let's say, and I'm going to use this as an example. Let's use Sam, the marketing guy, who's a really good artist, as an example. And I'm the manager in that team. And I don't talk to Sam about his personal goals and what he's into because I feel like it's an intrusion, because I'm not supposed to ask people about their personal lives. And Sam doesn't talk to me about those things because he thinks that if he talks about the fact that he loves art at work, it might get him fired. Right? Or because maybe I'm going to think that he has a plan to leave the company and to do some different kind of business or whatever that is. Well, what if I really, let's say I know somebody who is interested in developing something and they need artwork. Sam's got a side business doing art. That's not affected his business at all. He's a great marketing guy and he's doing awesome at it. And he, is going to stay doing that as long as he's going to stay doing it. We never know that our employees are permanent fixtures. But the person that I know has the potential to, collaborate. And I could connect those two people. And that could develop a stronger relationship on both sides. There's risk in that, sure. But there's also the possibility that because I didn't stand in Sam's way, because I have allowed for someone to fulfill their own, so to speak, I'm not going to call it destiny, but to fulfill what lights them up, that person is now a raving fan of me as a manager. They've got this job. They like it where they are because they don't feel like they're being stifled. Maybe that means that Sam tells his friend when we need to hire someone, oh my God, where I work is so awesome. Now we have a recruitment advantage in our team because of the fact that I allow people to be full human beings at work.
Yeah, and we all have our own gifts and strengths. And the more we can help others, those that work for you or with you, help them embrace their strengths. And you said something key earlier. We don't have all the gifts, so we do need to partner with people.
Right,
There might be something that, speaking of marketing, that's not my skill set, making nice looking things. I need someone to help me with that, you know? I'm good at thinking of ideas, but, as far as like the artwork, that's not my gift.
right. And that's another piece of it is knowing when things are not your gift, knowing when you're not, you're not in your zone, so to speak, and taking and trusting. And this is a big deal. I see this a lot with groups, with micromanagers, where they have a team and they do delegate, but then they hover over people and they tell them how to do it and they don't really allow themselves to fully express their skill. And when they do that, they're stifling the potential of the person who works for them, and they're wasting their own time that should have been spent somewhere else. It's the first thing I think of when someone says to me, well, I could hire somebody to do that, but every time I've done it, it's just such a waste of time because I always have to fix everything. Right? There's one of two problems there. It's either a lack of training or a lack of communication about what you need, and a complete failure in trusting that somebody is capable. And to believe that you're more capable than anybody else at everything is ludicrous.
Yeah, also to believe that your way of approaching something is the only way is ludicrous.
Right.
It's like, for me, it's like, it's got to be about outcomes. What needs to happen here? But how you as an individual accomplish that needs to be okay for the most part.
Yeah. I'll give you an example of the like, thinking you can do it better. When I was, what we lovingly refer to as a baby lawyer in the legal profession.
Okay.
So somebody who just got out of law school, just started, it was early 90s. Secretaries all had computers in law firms, but a lot of law firms, a lot of law firms, the attorneys didn't have a computer. Now, I went to law school in a time when we all came to school with a computer. We all typed all of our own stuff the whole time we were in law school. We were quite proficient at that. And then all of a sudden we were being told by managers who were our, older peers, you have to dictate. Dictation will teach you to think like a lawyer.
Hmm.
Now, to some degree, there's some basis in the fact that when you dictate, if you do it well, you've put all your stuff together, you've got a really organized outline, you're basically reading what you've already written. It's a complete freaking waste of time if you're a capable typist. What I found was if I was dictating, my process dictating was I had to have it completely organized. I had to dictate it. Then it'd come back with all kinds of typos or changes, plus the regular editing that I would do. And it'd go back and forth for a while in a process that took, I'm not joking, probably 3 times as long as if I had been typing as I composed, right? So in sometimes, yeah, like the delegation isn't necessarily more effective. However, there are times when it can be really effective. And that's usually when it's not something you can do. That old dude who's telling me to not to type, if he's not capable of typing and he's hunting and pecking with one finger like a lot of them did, and yeah, that guy, he needs a secretary and a dictation machine, right? Like that mattered. But we hit a point where our skill set shifted because of technology, because our lives were different. Then we get into the people, my age now. I mean, let's face it, like I'm 60 this year. I'm sure that my nieces and nephew who grew up with tablets in their hands could do anything on the computer, anything that's like user-oriented stuff related to a phone or a tablet or a computer, 100 times faster than I can because they've been trained in it way more than I was. I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not them. I didn't grow up with it as part of the air I was breathing, so to speak. So for me not to delegate that, not to say to somebody who's more proficient, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to make this work faster, better, easier. Can you figure out how to do that? Like create an AI for it. Why wouldn't I ask for that?
Right, right. Exactly. So you've given us a lot of great strategies. I'm just curious, how do you define productivity? What does that mean to you?
Well, productivity is different than having quality time. I'm going to say that right now. How do I define productivity? I define productivity is getting as much quality work complete as possible in, whatever period of time. It's, I mean, it's not everything's measured like widgets, but right now I'm writing a book. So literally writing my book means I finished a chapter in the time that I planned, in fact, half the time that I planned for writing the chapter. How did I do that? I gave myself truly concentrated focus time. And that's productivity. I halved that time. I planned on 8 hours. I wrote it in 4 hours. I mean, there's a word count there, but in the end, it's the quality of what got done. And, you know, if I had been sitting on my couch with the notifications on my phone and the TV on and distractions, it would have taken me longer, like way longer.
Yeah, right.
But the other piece of it is having time to do other kinds of things that you love, having a life that you enjoy, and having those little sparks all day. I call it microdosing of your little sparks, right? You get all your
Yeah.
little sparks and you do that proactively so that you have your fuel is consistent throughout the day to do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, what is that? What is microdosing? Or I think you also call it a micro moment.
Yeah, it's those little things, and like I said, for everybody they're different. So it might be music, it might be visual beauty, it might be physically moving your body, it might be the scent of the coffee in your cup every morning, and you kind of have that moment of like enjoying that, having the cup of coffee in your hand, and just that time. I mean, it's just a thing, right? And there's a spark there. It might be meeting the eye of your child and they smile and giggle and it lights you up in your heart, right? All of those things, all those different kinds of things. Dealing with a puzzle that's a challenge at work and finally getting it. And now you've got it working. You set up the thing that's been kind of buggy and it wasn't working for a while. And now you're like, oh my God, this is so cool. It works.
Yeah, that's amazing. So this has been a great conversation. You've shared a lot of great tips and strategies. Is there anything else you want to add today?
I don't think so. I just, it's so important to find those little moments, find the things that make you light up and make you happy, and then proactively make a point of fitting them in a way in your work. Like if those challenges that, if take satisfy, like solving puzzles makes you happy, try to get more puzzle solving into your day. If playing with your kid lights you up give yourself that concentrated time, not that do your homework, make sure you put your shoes by the door, whatever the stuff that's more a chore, but the stuff that you love, get the stuff that you love and make a point of it. And you'll find that everything else comes after that.
Yeah, that's key. So Michelle, where can people find out more about the great work you're doing?
Okay, well, they can get that clarity exercise. I told you I do like a guided meditation. That's a downloadable tool in a free community I offer. So they can text the word clarity to 33777, or they can go to a link that you're going to put in your show notes for that.
Mhm.
And, don't do the texting if you're in your car right now. That's not a good
Right.
idea.
No.
So, but you can get those downloads, and you can also get a downloadable form to do the SWOT analysis that I referred to, where you analyze your goals to see, do you really want them? And I really would love for you to be part of that community, and it's free. And then you can contact me through that or through my website.
Awesome. And we'll watch for your book.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Michelle.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. I hope you take the time to explore other episodes and learn from other amazing guests. Remember, if you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there is now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the four-letter Myers-Briggs code. I'll add a link in the show notes. And I'd love to connect with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts and links to social media for Quiet and Strong and much more. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. So many great things about being an introvert, and so we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.